So we are live here. We've got our handful of attendees on live, and we are live on Facebook. So what is going on, party people? Greg Jenkins from House Monkeypod. I think most of you probably know me, and that's how you wound up here. But it's possible that, I know Paul promoted this a few different places, so it's possible that you registered through Paul and you have never met me, in which case it's a pleasure, I'm sure. And as a surprise guest slash knight in shining armor, Jade Olivia swooping in, promoted from attendee to panelist to co-host, has saved the day. So we are live, locked, and loaded. Paul wrote what I thought was a valuable post in a group the other day that he and I are both in. It may even be a group that Paul's a moderator in, but he wrote a post that said, basically, like, hey, it's been a rough 18 months for a lot of small businesses, and I want to help. That's him, not me. I mean, I do want to help, but I'm using Paul's voice. And the other day, he just started unpacking it into this post with question after question designed to help us as small business owners, like, think critically about our business and identify like opportunities or questions we may not have capitalized on. And I just said, Paul, this is like super valuable. Do you want to do a live stream around this? He wrote it as a text post, and I said, well, maybe that would make the good like framework for a conversation. And Paul said, absolutely. And this is like 3 days ago. So here we are. Well, before we get into it, first of all, Paul, do you want to say hi or add any context to what I just shared?
I'm just here to be supportive, so I'm gonna mute and cut out, but I am here for everyone to moderate. I'm the moderator.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And that, by the way, for anyone who's wondering, is just half of a heart because she was using her other hand. So that's what we're working with there. Paul, buddy.
Yes.
Hey, man. So I don't want to waste anyone's time. We took a few minutes getting started, but I do want to give you a little bit of opportunity to set some context for this. Yeah. Because what I didn't realize at the time was like some of these bullet points are drawn from a book that you either have written or are writing, right? Is that yeah. So let me know how this came to be.
Yeah. So basically this, so how this came to be actually comes from, at least this topic, is basically we're talking about the offer distinctions here. And I'm writing a book called The Business Stack, which the argument is that no matter what size business you have, you're doing one of 7 things at any given time. You're doing offers, research and development, marketing, sales, fulfillment, the customer journey, your operations, people, or money, and that's it. And you have different systems, and they all play together. It's like a garden, and you kind of have to pay attention to all of them to be successful and to grow. And so for the offers, this is something that was driven by research when we were doing the small business success method. Do you remember that? And we were doing research in the product department of Keep on what does it mean to be successful as a small business, like this crazy philosophical question, right? And we did a lot of research, and we learned a bunch of distinctions and conversations and things like that. And one of the big research tools we got, because we were trying to build a recommendation system based on your business, here's the campaigns you should use, right? So we had to, it was called a business type identification at the time. And what I discovered through my research is that every offer really has these critical components that you need to at least know what they are and be clear about it to create a good customer journey and, good ops behind the scenes and all that kind of stuff. And so, and I've spoken about this at a couple of different places, but this is going to be like the first, full chapter of the book after the intro and setting the whole framework. One idea could just totally shift something for you, and you might have found a new revenue stream or something.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right segue into this, which is like, we're going to run through a series of questions or thoughts or perspectives. And first of all, like, they all might be valuable to you, but it only takes one, right? Like, you could leave this conversation with one idea that adds, an incremental gain to an existing aspect of your business. And that's progress, that's growth, and that's worthwhile for us and hopefully for you as well. So I want you to just like kind of follow along, but recognize that like there might be parts of this conversation that you have already exhausted or maybe aren't a direct fit, and that's okay. This is sort of a buffet, and you get to pick and choose like which pieces you put onto your plate to move forward. So the first question or the first topic that you put in your post was like B2B versus B2C. So business to business versus business to consumer. And you said, do you only serve end consumers, or like, do you only serve like businesses? And most people can self-select, well, I'm B2B or I'm B2C. And for those of you on live, like, let us know which one feels more natural to you. But Paul's recommendation there was like, try adjusting your offer for the other half, which like might feel obvious, but like so many people put themselves into one of those buckets and then just never re-examine how they might serve the other one. Do you have an example in mind of that, Paul? Or I can give one if you don't.
Yeah, go for your example if you've got one in mind.
Yeah, so I have a customer and a friend of mine, Eric Sparrow, who runs Milk House Candles in Osage, Iowa, is where they're based out of. And they do, I don't know, $5 million a year in wholesale candles to distributors and to stores, right? Like their customers are businesses, but they also like sell candles to the end consumer through their website and as gifts. And for a while they ran like a candle of the month kind of subscription. And so I just think that's like a really, they didn't always do both, but that's a really interesting expansion to go from only distributing, which is probably still 90% of their business, but to add this extra touch point where consumers can buy directly from them. And I don't know that it was like, I don't know that they planned that. But I think it's important like to not bury yourself into this identity without intention behind it. Because I think we can like, as we develop this notion of what our business is, which is important, it also starts to craft what our business is not. But as we change, as our business changes, as technology evolves, I just think it's healthy to re-examine that and to like make sure you're not missing out on opportunities to serve a segment of the world that like you otherwise, wouldn't have seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great way I'm not sure how much more I could say on top of that. I mean, if you're serving consumers, see if he can do businesses here. I see we got Damon Miller over here. What's up, Damon? I know that he's he's in the medical field, and so he primarily works with consumers, but he could potentially turn around and make a business offering. Who's to say that you can't go to an office and, hey, if your group needs this service, go for it. Like that used to happen at Infusionsoft back in the day. They'd have like a car wash guy come in, and
that's right.
If anybody in the company wanted their car washed, cool. And so it was kind of like his sales process was obviously a little different, but it was a way to kind of get more people in the door than just a bunch of individual consumers.
Jamie Hayes, who is on, does, he does a number of different things, but like health and fitness advice and consulting. And some of it is, weight loss oriented, some of it is strength building. And I think my understanding is his customers are largely the end consumer, people who want to like, change the way they feel. But you're right. Like that same, like maybe Jamie already does this, but like you could take those programs and offer it to a company who has hundreds of employees, and then they could like enroll like 5 or 10 or 50 people into a class style orientation. So the challenge is just like, hey, what do you offer, and who is it a fit for, and is there a segment that we're missing, right? And I think that's just an important conversation to have.
Yep, and that's actually a good thing to point out too. Is even if you're serving B2B, is there like a different segment that you could go after? That's another thing to consider too. That I totally forgot. So I guess the thing of course I'm reading from notes. I'm not this badass and cool at it. But the reason why this is important is because it mostly, it impacts the front end of the customer journey very highly, the marketing and the sales, because it impacts where your targets hang out. And so it affects lead generation and then how the sales process is going to operate. And so if you are shifting from B2B or B2C or something, you're probably going to have to fully redesign your marketing and sales journey. And you might even have to adjust fulfillment a little bit, but probably not a whole lot. It's really just going to be the front end and how you approach it.
Yeah. And the next question from your list is sort of just another like angle on this same one, which is like, do you offer products or do you offer services?
Yeah.
Like which one do you like naturally identify with? And could you create, or like if you have products, could you create a service around them? Right? Like an implementation or an onboarding or like some sort of training or some sort of like, different perspective where you help people get more value out of your product. Or conversely, like if you offer services, is there a way to productize that service so that it is, a little cleaner for you to deliver on or a little more streamlined? And this is me like adding my own, whatever editorial commentary for how I interpreted that. So Paul, like product versus service, did I miss anything, or is that what you intended? Like in that prompt?
Yeah. It's one of the highest level distinctions other than the B2B, B2C. I mean, if you just look at that combination of four things right there, if someone says I have a B2B service, I know exactly the kinds of strategies I can recommend. If you have a B2C service, okay, a little different. If it's a B2B product, again, there's strategies that you can consider and things that are just off the table now. And so product and service are the same thing. If you've got, a hamburger, there's certain things that you just don't get to do compared to a service like mowing the lawn, and vice versa. And this is probably the most important distinction of all, even more than the B2B, B2C, because this impacts all areas of the customer journey, because just a product is experienced different than a service, period, at the end of the day. And then
talk about the idea of productizing your service for a moment. I think most people are probably familiar with that. I feel like that's become more and more of a theme I hear people talking about, but I don't want to like gloss over it in case somebody's like, wait, what?
Yeah. So productizing the service is really, I guess, in my opinion, it's being deliberate about what you sell and sticking to it. So for example, I had an AC guy in here the other day, got my little invoice, and you can see it's a process. There's very clear, metadata at the top, info, here's all the technical measurements, here's all the stuff. Like it's basically, a productized. So I guess a productized service is really just where it's the same hamburger no matter where you go. It might be a little, different, from here and there, but for example, especially for consultants, it's really hard. And so, because we do services, I do automation services, I do advertising services. How do you package that up? So productizing a service really comes down to breaking it apart into its distinct phases or processes, and then putting a price along the way. And so the way our model works is if you want to do anything with us, it's a flat fee for a plan, and then you actually get a physical document that is basically like the blueprint if you're building a house. And then that does two things. One, they're a paying customer now, and so it's transformed the relationship. But two, that now defines the scope of the build. And so now I could say, okay, you have so many landing pages, so many emails, blah blah blah. Here's what it's going to cost to build it out if we build it for you. And then of course the cost of the plan goes towards that. And so we're leveraging commitment consistency principles there too. It's also, you could argue, a tripwire. It's about 10% of what a core offer would be if you're in that DM space, and that's a product line strategy you follow.
Yeah. Let me back up, because you just said a lot with very few words. So I mentioned at the beginning, like Paul is a student of like human psychology and behavior and like what decision making. And I don't know if this is what you were explicitly referencing, but there is a book, Persuasion, or this
by Robert Cialdini. Absolutely.
Cialdini, yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's not really I guess it's a marketing book, but not exclusively. It's like it's just a book about like how we make decisions and like these levers that you can pull. And it's filled with anecdotes. I have definitely talked to scientists or like people who have a more like analytical, like data-driven approach, and they take some issue with some of the stories that he uses, because it's like, well, doesn't matter. The point is, there's these different persuasion principles, and consistency and commitment are two of them. And so what he's referencing is like part of that scoping process is like gathering a commitment. Is this indeed what we are setting out to do? And do you want that? And when people say, yes, this is what I want, we as humans have a propensity to remain consistent with the things we have said we are. I'm this type of person who does this type of thing and wants this type of project. And that sets the business owner, Paul, up for success and fewer less turbulence along the fulfillment journey, because you've established that from the onset. And it, if anybody here has ever experienced scope creep, it proactively puts up some of those like boundaries to prevent the project from bloating.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And in fact, I've had to rely on that plan a couple of times where here's the plan. And then when they agree to the build, we create a messaging doc to write, each of the emails. And every once in a while, someone will slide in an extra email that wasn't in the plan. And I'm like, we'll build this. And it's, you're just going to pay the extra cost per piece.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It sets up it sets expectations. And I think like expectations is the key to success in any stage of any business's customer journey. Like, it's just getting clear about like, where are we? What are you expecting and what are we delivering, and how close or far apart are those two elements? And that's perhaps the biggest lesson I have learned as a small business owner, coach, or consultant. Is just like the disparity between their expectations and your deliverable is what informs and defines their customer experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And that actually dovetails nicely into the productizing of a service I was talking about earlier, where when you have when your phase is clearly defined, that is setting the expectations. Brina and I are working on a people systems business kit. It's a premium kit that comes with consulting because we help you build it. But it has 5 distinct phases where we have an audit at the very beginning to find out just where are your people systems. And then the second phase is to actually develop the organization chart and get clear on who is the exact next hire. And then the third phase is developing the onboarding for that hire, training resources, employee handbooks, whatever, if they need that. The fourth phase is actually building the hiring journey. So how people apply, some kind of a hiring pipeline. And then the fifth phase is the actual writing of the job description and posting and going live. And that's what people are going to be buying, is those 5 phases. And then, like I said, it'll probably take at least like 3 months to get through all of them. But that's what the process is.
I mentioned that Paul and I were both success coaches, or onboarding coaches back in the day at Infusionsoft. But Paul was hired, I don't know, before me, either a year or like a few months before. So I remember during my onboarding, I remember listening to Paul coach. I remember like training and like listening to like some of Paul's sessions. And you have always done this in terms of like gathering and requesting an express like commitment from people, like, hey, are you going to do this before our next call? Or I just remember like the level of accountability that you would bring for people might make some uncomfortable, but you can't argue with the results that it produced. And I think that that's a testament to Paul's ability to like prioritize results over, tough conversations, right? Or like frame it however you want. It's just being willing to like establish that. Yeah. Cool. So just my point was like, speaking of consistency, like as long as I've known Paul, this has been a consistency. But the next topic Paul brought up in that post was the concept of price magnitude, which I'm not super familiar with, but like the explanation Paul wrote was like, hey, could you be more profitable by raising your prices? Could you get more sales volume by lowering the prices, or by like strategic promotional discounts? And I don't have a whole lot of experience in like the psychology of pricing. So maybe that's the end of the thought, is like, could you raise it and without compromising the number of sales you got? Or if you lowered it and you got more sales, would that produce more profit? Like, is that the nature of what you're asking, is just to challenge your price point and like where it fits in that sliding scale?
Yeah, because when we talk about the magnitude, we're talking like scientific magnitude. So is it dollars? Is it tens of dollars, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands? Are we selling a boat or a car? Is it hundreds of thousands because it's a B2B offer? This is really important. I'm reading my notes. This impacts how much we can spend for lead generation and how involved our sales cycle can be. And this also does afford room for fulfillment surprises as well.
So let me say, you're right. So this informs, what do you say, what we can spend on leads, right? If you are running paid advertising, one of the questions people often get is like, well, how much, like if I'm getting leads at like $1.50 per lead or $10 per lead or $100 per lead, like in a vacuum, we don't know if that's good or bad.
Right.
But the reason, like how you make an informed decision is by knowing at what rate those leads turn into customers and how much each customer is worth to you, right? Is that the like, if you extrapolate that out?
Well, that's kind of like lifetime customer value, like if they're buying, which you can definitely look at as far as looking at like one hamburger and avoid, it's, just how much are we selling it for? And so, yeah, you're right. We can adjust it. Or what you can do is some of the most successful businesses actually have an offer in each of the bins that they want to play in. And then they intentionally design their product line to, get people from product A to product B. So if I'm selling something for hundreds of dollars, can I create an offer for tens of dollars? Again, if you follow DM, they teach this is known as splintering, where you can splinter a little piece of your offer off and make a cheaper one.
Yeah.
And then there's also the idea of, and I love this, and this is something, I mean, DM has definitely talked about it, but I learned it way before from, I think, Dan Kennedy, and the idea of just charging a premium. Like, can you take your current offer and find a way to charge 10x for it and just have it on the menu? Because people will buy it. Nobody needs $100 martini, and they sell those.
Yeah.
And people buy them.
Like there's an element of like novelty to it that can be appealing, or even prestige. Like some people are like, yeah, if you sell a $10,000 like Platinum Plus card, I want to be in. And just for anyone who, I don't know if you defined it, but when Paul says DM, you're talking about digital marketer.
Yes, I'm talking about digital marketer. Ryan Dice, all those guys. Sorry.
I just have been chastised in different trainings for using acronyms without explaining them. So I want to make sure that we're not leaving anyone in the dust.
I'm gonna remember that. No, that's really good. That's good. It's good instructional design right there.
Cool.
But yeah, that's price mag. There's not a whole lot to it. Just you have to know what that is. Like, you gotta know where you're playing.
Have you heard the story about like how in the Southwest there's like a lot, at least in the US in the Southwest, there's like this turquoise jewelry. Mm-hmm. Like it's like really, it's like, at a lot of like souvenir, like tourist shops kind of thing. And I read, I don't remember where this was, but I read an anecdote about one of those tourist type shops in New Mexico, where there's just a bunch of people selling like the same turquoise jewelry, these big stones, and they're all priced similarly. And this guy and his like shop were like, this isn't selling, it's not moving, like we just need to get out of this game. And so he left a note for like his co-owner or like assistant or somebody at the shop. And he was like, take all the turquoise jewelry and like half it, right? Or something like that. Like, and then he left for like a week. And the assistant or business owner, I'm really doing a great job with this story, by the way, misunderstood the note. And so rather than dropping the price by half, they multiplied it. So they like doubled it and they sold out. And like the idea was like all these shops, like, every 1 mile down the road, like they're all selling the same thing at the same price. And just like by doubling their prices without changing the product, it was a differentiator that led enough people to believe there's something different or special or unique about this, so that they bought it. And like, I haven't authenticated this actual story, but I think it illustrates an interesting principle, which is like, your price also informs the value that people associate with your product. And so there may be an opportunity, like Paul said, to just attach a bigger price tag or to add something like to make that product feel more white glove. Even if you're not trying to get people to buy it, some people will, but it also frames up your core offer because now it has something to like be juxtaposed against.
And that's a really good point. I want to call out, you said, in not so many words, but if your price point is too low, people may actually worry about the quality of it. If it's like, hey, I'm going to give you this, 8-week course for $7. How good's it going to be at $7?
Yeah.
So
I don't want bargain discount steaks, like that's not how I'm looking for it. Yeah. Like,
right.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Let's move on to the next one, which is buying cycle. So the question for this is there a way to shorten the length of time it takes someone to purchase upon discovering your offer? Jason added, or gas station sushi. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yep. Okay. So I love this question because one of my favorite diagnostics to help businesses run is what I call the one conversation, which is like a progressive video series that guides them through examining their customer journey. And once you've done this initial audit, there's a series of recommendations for growing your business. You can put more people into the journey. You can sell more, increase your average purchase price or customer lifetime value, sell more to the people who are already in there, and actually it's all three. These are not mutually exclusive. You can also expedite that journey, right? It's focus on if you need to get them from milestone to milestone, your ability to lead your business is based on the forecasting that equation produces. But who's to say there's a margin of error that is amplified by the length of time in between those milestones. And so the more you can accordion style shrink that down, the more successfully you can forecast the way that those leads and prospects are going to turn into customers. And the shorter you have, the less ambiguity you have in that journey. So do you have some suggestions for how people can shorten that those gaps, or how they can accelerate that customer journey?
So the only way to do it is to become intimately familiar with the processes and look at where are their bottlenecks. And remember that there's both the customer journey as well as the hidden operational journey under the hood that the customer never sees. And sometimes that's where the most painful bottlenecks are that can have the biggest impact. Small hinges swing big doors kind of thing. So you may be able to fix something. Let's just say, for example, your sales reps are having
small hinges swing big doors.
Yep, I did steal that from Ryan Dice at a TNC one year. But it's so true. It's so true. You use massive doors and these little hinges, and you just got to know what they are. And so for your operations and what your people are dealing with, so something as simple as booking sales conversations. If you've got sales reps that are, trying to book convos on the call and whatnot, could you give them a calendar link that they can now send their people, and people can book their own calls? That may shorten the buying cycle.
Yeah.
Another way to shorten the buying cycle too is, again, where you can have some kind of introductory or smaller offer. So maybe they're not going to buy, it's still going to take them a couple months to buy the $1,000 thing. And can you get them to buy a $100 thing before that in a couple of days?
That's a good one.
But that's if you have multiple offers. If you only have one single offer, and then of course there's ways to just build urgency. Run some kind of a limited time sale or promotion, or add value in a different way. So it's the same price, but maybe you get two of the things instead of one. There's ways to crank up the urgency. That's why holidays are really good to stand on. In fact, here's a holiday, Greg. Today is the official 5-year anniversary of PLS Consulting as an incorporated business.
Hey, man. Cheers to that. That's really cool. It's amazing how quickly it seems to happen, right? How months turn into years and years turn into more years. But I don't know where you thought you would be, but I think being your own business for 5 years is a milestone worth celebrating. So good on you, man. Congrats. And happy birthday, PLS Consulting.
Yeah. So, I guess let's keep moving on to the next thing. Is that the assisted transaction?
Yeah. Let me add something to the buying cycle one though. The reason I want to introduce this, or the reason that I think this is so important, is because I think there are probably a lot of small businesses who don't know how long it takes for their prospects to turn into customers. They don't necessarily know what their buying cycle is. And if that's you, that's okay, but it's time to fix it, right? So like how, start to track when people enter your database, whether it's Keep or anything else, and then track when they become a customer. And then, once a month or quarterly or automatically, you can calculate the amount of time it takes in between those two junctures. And just by paying attention to it, you will start to notice, is it trending up or trending down? Like, what is the average amount of time it takes? And that's one of those metrics that you should have the pulse that gives you a pulse of your business. And you want to be driving it down over time, adding steps or finding bottlenecks or proactively, diffusing objections, right? Like those types of things to shorten that cycle. And there are more extreme things, like Paul said. You can create a stair-step product progression. Like there's other changes, but it starts by recognizing this and measuring it. Yeah. So the next one is what you said, unassisted versus assisted transactions. So can people buy on their own, which I would assume is unassisted, or do they have to speak to someone in order to check out? And this sounds pretty straightforward, but like if it's buy on their own, do they have an option to speak to someone if they want to? And if it's they have to talk to someone, well, do they have an option to buy on their own if they don't want to talk to someone? It's like, if you're unassisted 100% or assisted 100%, is there value in offering the other one?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the unassisted sales. In fact, this is what a lot of the big internet marketer guys do. Like I know Frank Kern does this all the time. When you get deep down in his funnel and you still haven't bought, he'll offer to do like a 10-minute Q&A call, which is basically just a closing call. And, hey, because by that point, they know what the offer is and what the price point is. And hey, so what questions do you have about the thing? X, Y, Z. Okay, yada, yada, yada. You want to buy it? And that's basically it. And so you can do the same thing deep within your funnels there too. And then if it's an assisted transaction, then this is where, if it's an assisted transaction and it's more than hundreds of dollars, you're probably going to want some kind of a pipeline to manage that. And if it's less than that, then you could probably use, tasks or whatnot to follow up with people. And you're right, this is pretty straightforward. This basically just impacts how we sell. And so it has a very high impact on the sales journey and not a whole lot of marketing fulfillment. And again, this is something you need to be clear on. Just imagine working on an offer with somebody and this whole time you think they're going to be able to buy it themselves. The whole time they think they're going to talk to a human. And then at some point, the two trains are going to collide. It's going to be like, wait.
Yeah. And like, I don't like being on my phone. Like, I'm just not a big phone call guy. And I know that like, there's probably some baggage I need to unpack as to why that is, or like why I get PTSD when like the once a week when I see it ringing. But as much as that's not my love language, it is for other people a safety blanket. It's a comfort zone where like the internet can be intimidating, and especially like depending on what you're buying and the price point attached to it, like there is some inherent like risk for some people that can be unsettling. And so by making yourself available, it doesn't have to be on the phone, but by giving people a lever that they can pull to get validation, assurance from a human, like so if you don't have that offer, some people will miss it. If you do have that available, some people will take advantage of it. And like, that's one of those things that may feel like a small change, but like there's a percentage of your sales that you are probably missing out on if you don't have an option for them to talk to a human to get their questions answered. So the solution I implemented a couple of years ago, which was a suggestion from a mutual friend of ours, Mr. Michael Hunter, was like you can add a chat tool to your checkout pages. So I added, at the time it was Pure Chat is a chat solution that like has a WordPress plugin option. And I added Pure Chat to all of my order forms. And I had something like a 75% close rate from those chats, because the only time people chatted was when they were on the checkout page and they were stuck on, is this in the course? Does it include that? Or what about this? And as soon as the chat came right to my phone, and as soon as I answered it, the order would come in. So I wrote a blog post once that was like making sales at the dentist, because I was literally in the waiting room at the dentist's office. A chat came in, I answered it. I had my teeth cleaned. I came out and I had the sale. I was like, okay, well, like that's validation for that tool. I stopped using Pure Chat because they changed their pricing model, and the free plan I was on, they like just pulled some features out of it and made those paid. And like, I got like personally defensive about it because I liked the free features, but it's their business, it's their choice. So I don't use that tool any longer. But the point is like, yeah, how do people check out? And like, are you giving them the support that they could possibly want during that window? Yeah. You ready to move on?
Yeah. Well, I chuckle because you're talking about, talking to that live person that can close the deal.
Oh yeah.
I got scammed because I was able to talk to a person, and I'm going to talk about that at Icon.
That's right.
Yeah. So if you want to hear how I got scammed real hard, attend my Icon talk, because it's a perfect example of multi-channel marketing.
Yeah.
And I can't believe I got got. But
I have heard this story from Paul, and it is a symphony of like moving and variables. And it's pretty dark. It's a trip for sure. So if you're not attending Icon yet, they have options for attending in person and virtually. It's just keep.com/IKON Icon. And I don't know if I'm going to be there in person, but I'm definitely going to be attending virtually. And Paul's session is one that I definitely have circled. So I'll give you that plug as well. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So always be closing, right? Commitment, consistency. If you're here in this presentation and you like what you saw, you're going to like what I talk about. And I created an open loop too.
There you go. Yeah. That's it, man. That's like, imagine this was a nurture sequence, and this in email one, you said, I'm going to tell you the story of how I got scammed, and people are just waiting for the next email.
Yes.
Okay. Transaction mode. Okay. So how do people pay? You said that there are 4 ways: in real life, online, over the phone, or by mail. So like, I think the question here is like, how are you currently accepting payments? And could expanding that help you close more deals, right? If it's only online, but some people, like if it's a big purchase, they may want to call and give you their credit card over the phone, right? Or if it's only in person, like, is there a way for you to collect payments virtually to like let them, rather than having them sign a PDF and then mail you a check, could you like distribute a quote that they can click and pay, right?
Yeah. Could I pull up my Taco Bell app and buy my meal now and then just go down there?
I heard Taco Bell was testing out a taco subscription.
When we get to the payment terms, let's talk about that.
Okay. So the next one was fulfillment or delivery mode. Same 4 possibilities as before: in real life, online, voice to voice, or mail. But like, could your offer have more value based on how you are fulfilling it? Do you want to expand on that, Paul?
Yeah. So for example, we don't get anything in the mail anymore these days. It's not, junk mail. So if you like, for example, I'm working with another certified partner. He's got an on-demand unlimited marketing service, and it's all digital. But when people sign up, we have a welcome letter that is designed to look like he printed it and signed it.
Cool.
So, we used the script font. We made it look blue, like it was ink. Black text on the rest, everything, all of that jazz. And so even a handwritten font on the envelope that we print out. And that's just a big wow. People don't expect it. Or like if you're doing stuff online, if it's online delivery, can you add extra value by having some kind of voice to voice? So maybe you get a live call, live Skype call, live phone call, whatever. And then of course in real life is, that's just kind of events, but you'll see this happen a lot with the big, with the online communities. Hey, here's this big online thing. I mean, you even do this, Greg. You'll do your in-person retreats.
Yep.
And then the fact that the fulfillment mode is in real life is high value, and it's a new offer in an end of itself.
Yeah. Right. People, as you know, I run a membership community, and people connect virtually there, but over time, people feel that sense of connection and want it to like manifest in real life. And so that happens at conferences. The other day, Moisha and Amanda like met up to like co-work together in Toronto, and I just like, it makes me grin with pride. But the Monkeypod retreat is, I mean, it's uniquely valuable, but that's an element of it, is like, it is the real world collection of like these people who have this online overlap. And Jamie just commented, like, I kept Greg's welcome card for years. Yeah, we send physical mail when you sign up for this digital membership. And that's intentional. Like, I know that we could automate it, but I think there is something.
Dude, I got my OG sticker, bro. I'm never getting rid of that. I got that.
There's something about the like human touch that I think okay. It is a strategy, but it also serves us. Like Jade writes a lot of them now, but when I wrote them, I really enjoyed the process of like writing out the address, because it forced me to think about who that person is and where they are in the world. And like, one of the coolest things about our community is the Keep community and the small business community is like the global network, and how we can be so far apart and our businesses can be so different. But time and time again, the problems and the challenges that we are solving are the same. And like, there's something unifying about that concept that I really enjoy. So yeah, I'm proud of the digital aspects of my business, but I'm deliberate about maintaining some of those human elements and real world touch points.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, think about your fulfillment mode. Can you do anything to make things more exciting?
Yeah. Jermaine Griggs comes to mind as someone who used to automate a call from so somebody would buy, of course, they get access to a virtual course, but he would automate a phone call as well that had two different messages based on whether they answered live or based on the voicemail. But like, your phone would ring, and imagine getting a phone call from the founder of the company you just spent money with. Like, whether it's automated or not, it's just like a little bit of disruption, and it's memorable. And here we are talking about it, 9 years later or whatever, right?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
Man, I am conscious of the time. So I realize we're almost at the top of the hour. We have a few left on this list. So thanks for hanging out with us, guys. And we will try to, we'll probably end up going a few minutes over. So if you need to leave, that's fine. But hopefully you guys are enjoying this conversation.
Before you leave, though, if you're interested in getting on the wait list for the book, you can go to two places. You can either go to book.paulsokol.me, or you can go to bpro.events/BS book.
Yeah. So what's the current status? It's a wait list, right?
Yeah. So basically, the proposal's already out there. Literary Agent's going to be pushing it in January, and so her challenge to me is build your audience as much as you can this quarter. So that's what I'm going for.
I don't remember where or when the topic came up, but you mentioned the idea of doing a virtual book tour, and I would love to contribute or support or host or however we can, because as you know, I'm a big fan of yours, and so this is one I'm looking forward to. Oh, we've got the link in the chat here, and we'll add it in the Facebook comments as well. Oh, it's already, geez, you guys are. I'll just keep talking, and the things that I think about will happen magically. That's how it's working today. Okay. Yeah. So the next, thanks for getting that out there. The next one is payment terms. So is the thing you are selling, whether it's a product or service, is it a one-time payment that they just buy? Is it a payment plan, or is it a recurring subscription that they are agreeing to? And so ask if it's just that, would a payment plan help, right? Mm-hmm. Or if you don't have a recurring offer, should you, right? Mm-hmm. And how do you lead people on that conversation?
Man, so the subscription model conversation is actually one of the most challenging conversations I have with people, because a lot of people don't believe it.
Don't believe what? That they don't think it's a fit.
They don't think a subscription model can work for the business. And I would argue that unless you are a once in a lifetime purchase, which is a very rare kind of thing, you absolutely can have some kind of a subscription model. So like you mentioned, Taco Bell is going to have their Taco Club, right? How can you have a subscription as Taco Bell? Well, you pay $50 a month, I think it's like $35 a month, and you can have one taco a day. And guess what? They found that the people buying that taco also bought more food on top of it. So average order value is going up. Plus you have the predictable monthly recurring revenue and your AMR. I mean, even though your AMRR is only like, tens of dollars at economies of scale, if you have 1 million people, there you go. It's 35 million every month that you're rebilling.
AMRR.
So sorry. So yeah, I'm bad with acronyms. Good catch. It's the average monthly recurring revenue. So basically you take the total sum of all your subscriptions and divide it by the unique number of subscriptions.
Yeah.
It's slightly different than the monthly recurring revenue, which is just that whole first number. Those are both important to pay attention to. And I believe that the AMRR is actually, it's a key metric because it gives you the average value of one subscription. And that really gives you context. And then on the expense side of it, there's the average cost per internal employee, which gives you that same kind of context. Like this one person, each person is basically this much cost to the business. So they balance each other out.
Yeah. I mean, the OG membership is a recurring subscription. It is by far the most stable part of my business. I think it's my most valuable offering. Yeah. And it has produced that level of stability gives me comfort, and it allows me to plan and forecast with confidence. And I would love for as many businesses as possible to have a version of that. And so if you haven't thought about it, challenge yourself to be like, well, what would that look like for us? Do people naturally buy my products more than once? And if they do, is there a cadence to that? And would a subscription serve them? And you can ask your audience, the people. I'm surprised at what people will tell you that we for some reason don't let them. We fail to ask these questions when all you need to do is just listen, because your audience will let you know what they're after. That's not to say you should deliver on whatever it is that they want, but if there's alignment between it serving your business and allowing your audience to stick around or drive that average customer lifetime value up, then I think that's a win for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Even a band could have a monthly subscription and for fans, and they just write a blog post or something and do a rehearsal set a week or month or something.
Behind the scenes stuff, people love it.
They absolutely pay for it.
Online affinity, your target audience's general tendency to be online. So can you look in another online or offline pool for the fish you want to catch? I'm reading this sort of piecemeal because Paul wrote it with emojis instead of words in some places.
No, so you 100% got exactly the messaging here.
Okay,
we're going hieroglyphics here.
Yeah, maybe pond rather than pool though, because those are fish. But yeah, so if your audience is online, then online is probably where you are fishing. But if your audience is offline, offline is probably where you are fishing. But that doesn't mean that they are exclusively one or the other. So the question is are you diversifying your reach, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's going to impact where you look for your lead generation as well as your referral efforts too. So don't forget about the referral part. So this actually has a high impact on the marketing journey as well as the deep fulfillment journey for this offer. And yeah, again, it's usually on a spectrum, only online, only offline. It's very rare for someone to truly be in any one of those. And yeah, you can just kind of go looking in different places. In fact, offline stuff still works really well because not a lot of people do it, and not a lot of people do it good.
Yeah. I remember, so one friction point that I want to call out that some people might be feeling is my customers, don't buy whatever I sell on Facebook, right? That's not where they make a buying decision. It's a professional thing and they're not, and it's okay, I understand that resistance, but just because they're not buying from Facebook doesn't mean that you can't support their journey or influence their decision through that channel, right? It doesn't mean that the businesses you sell to might not be on Facebook, but the people that comprise those businesses are, or that's the point I'm trying to make, is sometimes you have to think about, 1 degree or 2 degrees away and where they hang out and the other channels that go into the decisions that they wind up making.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks.
And I guess, well, since we're at time, let's keep going. Let's keep chugging through it. Because I mean, that's not.
Yeah, we've got a couple left. I was reading the comment here from Jamie Hayes.
Oh, that's an exciting comment. I love that. That's so cool, Jamie.
Yeah, Jamie said we have an assisted sales process into a subscription coaching service with some cash up front to pay for marketing and a minimum 12 months term, and then ongoing after that. One person kept being coached after 6 years. Yeah, okay. I had not read the whole thing. I just saw it. That's awesome, man. So, and I don't know how much of that language is like your own or has been drawn from like this conversation, but it's important to be able to think about that, right? Like this whole conversation isn't necessarily about right or wrong. It's about like understanding and analyzing the way you are doing things and then looking at what else you could be doing or if there's tweaks or options that you could be adding to either serve more people or convert more of the people you are already serving.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing too is like by using this kind of really, I guess, orthodox language that's, you know, it says what it means. Just with that, we have an assisted sales process and subscription coaching service. Like right there, that tells me almost everything I need to know as far as where I can start sniffing for truffles.
Sniffing for truffles. Man, what, like, I love the visual for that, but also like that's it drives the element of value and scarcity because truffles are both. All right, so next one was purchase recency. How often does your target rebuy? Like, do they come back, right? Paul said there are very few offers that are truly like once in a lifetime purchases. So do they come back? How often? And could you have them rebuy sooner? Could you, like, this is the same, I mean, similar to the buying cycle, but like this is for a repeat purchase. It's like, how regularly do they buy and how do we shorten or accelerate that cycle? Or the other variable you tossed in here is there a way to have them cross-sell, right? If they bought product A and you know that like, well, they're going to want product B. And I don't know, like maybe like, let's talk about pools, right? Maybe there's a set of chemicals that they need for pool opening at the start of the summer season. And then there's a different set of like supplies or chemicals that they need for winterizing their pool. That would be a cross sell. It's like, you know, in this season, we can anticipate this. So X number of months later, we can anticipate that. And then, you know, it's basically just two products you're repeating at overlapping intervals at off peaks of the year. So like, does that exist within your audience or your business model, or should it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too, is that this can also impact cash flow too. So if you need more cash flow, increase your purchase recency. So one of the smartest moves in my opinion for our services that I did is, so it's, you know, it's a flat planning fee. And then it's a flat, you know, how, you know, to load the ads, it's like $100 for every 10 ads to load. And then for monitoring that, instead of doing it as a monthly purchase, I made it a weekly purchase. So if you want us to monitor your ads, you're paying us each week for it, which gives you one good iteration of everything. And it's great because it really makes people get serious about what they're doing. You know, we had one lady before the pandemic shut her business down. It was perfect because like every week we were just kind of tweaking and adjusting and making things better for her. And then conversely, there's another client where, you know, they paid $250 for like 2-3 weeks. And like, it was clear that their website was just not any good because we were driving traffic. And so they're like, we need to turn the ads off. I'm like, cool, thanks. Whereas if I had paid monthly via that subscription, maybe we're looking at like prorating a refund, or now I have to work for a whole month on these crappy ads and pull my hair out. Whereas if people paying you $250 a week, that's cash flow each week. You know, it's coming in.
Ed just had an interesting comment. He said, or they said, as you may wish to consider, and you may wish to consider a referral program to pay existing clients to send you leads.
Yes.
Yes, Ed. But even before a formal referral program, sometimes it's as simple as asking. And Paul actually does this automatically. I know because I paid an invoice recently, and the next follow-up I got was like, thanks for that. do you know anyone else we could help? Right. And so sometimes it's as simple as like just asking, like, who else do you know? And like, number one, that's smart. Number two, it can be automated. And number three, those people will close at a higher rate and more quickly than cold traffic.
Yes.
Over and over and over, because the personal endorsement from somebody who bridges the gap between you and them acts as an accelerant. It speeds them through the journey because they don't have the inherent distrust. They're working with momentum from that referral. So, so you can totally just ask, or if you start getting referrals, Jason's got to bounce. Thanks for hanging out, Jason.
Bye, Jason.
If you are naturally getting referrals from people, this is what happened to me, is I wanted a formal way to say thank you to people who were referring their customers to Monkeypod or their friends to Monkeypod. So I set up my referral partner program so that I could pay these people. They weren't asking to get paid, but like, it was important to me that I found a way to like express my gratitude, and ideally, you know, it would serve us both. And so I think that's a natural extension of that conversation, and one that, like, you know, too many people are afraid to like go down that route, but like, it's just about having, if you know your margins can afford it, then why not reward those people? Because you're not paying for the acquisition cost, right? That's the trade-off there, is like you're paying a commission instead.
Yes.
And like so many of the, we could go for days, man. So many of the customer journey concepts could also be applied to developing and maintaining the relationships you have with a referral network. Like, it's just another relationship you're managing. And the sale, the conversion point is when they give you a referral, right? So you're building toward that, you're giving them resources, you're helping them make a decision. And then it's just another layer to that. But so many people focus exclusively on lead gen and not necessarily on like the way automation could serve those other aspects. But that's a tangent from the conversation at hand. Did I cut you off, Paul? Were you going to add something?
Let's see. Purchase recency. No, I think that pretty much. Again, it's pretty straightforward. It's simple. So, yeah, you nailed it.
Great.
Oh, more validation. Jamie's saying selling weekly subscriptions is all we do. Higher conversion rates, better collections, never monthly. Yeah, there you go.
Bingo.
You're right there. Social proof.
So the last bullet point here was the entertainment factor. This moves from fully functional to fully entertaining. And you said a hammer is not entertaining, is solely functional. Whereas a metal concert, I don't know if that's specifically a metal audience behind you, Paul, but a metal concert is entertaining, right? So how could you be using, or are you using, you know, an entertainment concept in your offer, in your customer journey, or in your fulfillment that like goes above and beyond delivering, you know, like if people want food, right? Well, do they just want calories? Because there's a lot of ways to get that. Or do they want the experience that accompanies dining out, you know, and like the other elements of ambiance or entertainment? You said even a fully functional offer can be presented in valuable and entertaining ways. And you used the late Billy Mays as the example there. He's one of the, you know, most famous infomercial guys, right? Is that who I'm thinking of?
OxyClean and all that jazz. Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah, so let's talk about entertainment or being entertaining.
Yes. So again, this is kind of like your price magnitude. It's a like know thyself kind of thing, and then play to that. Because this is absolutely going to impact your lead generation efforts as well as your content marketing strategy overall. In general, people do want to be distracted and entertained. And then, of course, if it's a functional offer, there has to be that kind of balance here, kind of like a good documentary, right? It can't be super boring and droll, but it also can't just be all stories and, you know, fancy effects here.
Right. Yeah, I'll add, as you pause to take a breath, I'll add like entertainment. It doesn't have to be like showmanship, right? What it means is like engaging and like interesting and personality driven. Sometimes it's as simple as like letting yourself be human, or like, you know, Paul does this masterfully. He talks about like things that he cares about, and he references heavy metal or, you know, the different, or going to the gym, like different aspects of his life. And I think that like that's it makes a measurable difference, right? People regularly remark on my copywriting, which I'm not a copywriter. Like I haven't been formally trained, but I'm a human who like isn't afraid to talk about like how I love Harry Potter or hiking or dogs, right? And I think there's something about like being intentional about including like the unique qualities of you as a person and you as a business into your content, into your copy, that help differentiate, right? Because at the end of the day, you're probably not the only person who offers whatever it is that you offer. And so the reasons people might go with you are usually like, well, referrals, you know, price, proximity, or like there's some differentiator. And sometimes it's as simple as like, I like their branding. I think that Wistia is clever. I think that, you know, Sticker Mule is funny. Like sometimes it's just those things. And so I'm not saying that like you should pour all your time and energy into like hosting something that's totally off brand just in the name of being entertaining. But I am saying that like you should reevaluate like the way you're communicating and just let yourself be interesting.
Mm-hmm. And also be mindful of what is interesting to your target audience too. Yeah. So if you're targeting millennials, what's entertaining to them is going to be very different than if you're targeting boomers. You gotta know the room.
Great point. Okay, so I think that's it. We're a few minutes over on time. So thanks first of all, Paul, for sharing so generously. I thought this was a fascinating, you know, just so much packed into one Facebook post that I was like, this is going to get swept away and like never see it again. And so I wanted to like surface it up and just hopefully get it in front of more people, because I think there's a lot here. So you finished by saying like, you could take any of these offer components and adjust or modify them to stay nimble. Like, I think that's the point I want to close with is like, this is not a checklist that you have to do everything on or deem yourself a failure. This is like a progressive conversation filled with ideas and suggestions. Hopefully one or several have served you. And it is accidentally or maybe strategically a teaser for Paul's book. And I just dropped the link in the chat again for anyone who is interested in getting on that wait list. As Paul said, the conversation we had today, like this is the first chapter. This is the jumping off point for what will be Paul's book. And I'm personally stoked about it just because of our friendship, but also because I know and admire what you store under that hair.
Thank you. So you want to be on the virtual book tour then? You want to do that when that goes off?
I'm in. Yeah, here's some.
All right. I'm going to add you to the official list.
Yeah, commitment and consistency.
Commitment, consistency, right there. I'm going to go ahead and add you to the list. So
indeed. Totally, we'll do it. Yeah. So thanks for joining, guys. Jamie said this was great, entertaining.
Hey.
Yeah. Jason said something similar before he tuned off or signed off. Yeah. So that's it. We don't have a hard sell or anything. We just enjoy this stuff, and it's only doing so much good when we keep it between the two of us. So we wanted to share what we could. But if there's something here that serves you, let us know in the comments. That validation means a lot to us. If there's something here that you think would benefit other people, please feel free to tag them or share it with them. Paul, yeah, Ed said home run, guys. Thanks, Ed. Appreciate that, man. This was fun. Yeah. Sports. Paul, is there, you mentioned your Under the Hair newsletter. Do you want to plug that? Is there a way people can get on that list if they're not yet?
Yeah. If you want to go to paulsokol.me, paulsokol.me, it's intentionally a ugly old landing page. The idea is to filter out people that are like, screw this guy. Because, you know, what I will say, though, is if you're watching this, sign up right now, because I have the big 5th anniversary Under the Hair mega issue coming out. I've never done a mega issue like this, but it's like comic book mega issue, right? You know, where it's like 200 pages. Like, I'm going to have a lot of stuff in this thing. So that's why it's been a while. So
awesome. And maybe that's a good note to end on. Happy 5th anniversary or entrepreneurversary. Yeah.
Yeah. I survived.
Yeah. So far, so good. Cool, man. All right, this was great. I appreciate you. If anyone's watching the replay in the future, thanks for spending the time with us virtually. And for those of you still on live, we appreciate you. Have a good day. Later, y'all.